2023 nearly done and dusted. And then, of course, next year, elections. It's a big year. It's the most, many have been describing this as the most important election since 1994. And of course, 30 years of what we have so far been calling democracy. Before we get into the political landscape, I think it would be appropriate for you to just give us a bit of an overview of how you think the past 30 years have fared for us as South Africans.
Oh, yes, Zahid. I think to a large extent, the last 30 years have proven to us that our constitutional democracy is largely intact in the sense that we have, say, the judiciary, which is an arm of the state that is well functioning very well in line with the constitutional prescripts. We know that ours is an independent judiciary. It is expected to execute its constitutional mandate without fear, favor, or prejudice. And also, we also have, I would say, strong Chapter 9 institutions. We have seen that in the last decade or so, you have the public protector that now has some added power to its role. We know that the remedial action that is undertaken by the public protector is now binding, following, of course, the Constitutional Court ruling. We have the South African Human Rights Commission that also has assumed a crucial role in the promotion and protection of human rights, of course, in line with the Bill of Rights that is provided for in our Constitution. The Auditor General has assumed also a significant role in promoting good governance. We can all attest that the Auditor General in the last decade or so also has delivered or tabled audit outcomes, of course, impacting on our national, provincial governments, including the state-owned entities, plus municipalities, and that also needs to be commended. We have a free press. We know that in South Africa, freedom of expression, including media freedom, is constitutionally guaranteed. There's not been much cracks in that respect. We also know that to a large extent, ordinary members of the public enjoy their rights. One, of course, the right to assemble, petition, and also to demonstrate. And as a result, we've seen how in many communities throughout the country, ordinary members of the community are able to take up issues with the authorities or those who are in power. So on that score, I would say that in the last 30 years, our constitutional democracy has been executed fairly well in respect to the roles that are assigned to the various state institutions or organs of state in accordance with our constitution. But of course, we know that we still have serious socioeconomic issues and conditions that affects majority of ordinary people. We know that unemployment levels are up, poverty levels are up, inequality levels also are up, and to a large extent, this afflicts majority of South Africans who are yet to enjoy the fruits of our democracy that was ushered in 1994.
Yeah, and I think it's important you mention some of those institutions that we have seen in the past 30 years and we have set up and have seen work for us in many instances. And I think that's something we take for granted at times. We don't really recognize the importance of these. And we tend to mainly focus on the socioeconomic issues. But then again, when it comes to these institutions that we've had, I think it's also important to realize that we did come through really dark times, especially if you think of the state capture era, and then you had these institutions which I think played quite a large role in, at least towards the end, not allowing us to fall off the precipice. But then again, Professor, coming back to the elections next year, There's been many reasons why people have said this is an important election. Of course, we're seeing for the first time the potential of the ruling African National Congress losing its majority. We're seeing the potential of coalitions. What to you makes 2024 an important election?
Yes, so it is important in many respects. We know that as our constitutional democracy matures, you'll have other dynamics coming into play. You'll have parties that have been dominating the political scene since 1994, facing serious internal challenges, which may also manifest in terms of disunity. And also, you'll have other individuals that decide to exit these parties and form their own parties. And we've seen much of that development in the last 2 years or so. We know now that we have new political players that have come into the political space. Your Action South Africa, you Build One South Africa, for example. You also have Rise Mzansi movement. These are new political players that have also entered the space, calling for a new change, a new direction in terms of our political related issues and also the governance of the state. And also, of course, lately, we now have the Change Starts Now, a movement led by Jadine. And also, for the first time, we know that the Constitutional Court has given a green light for independents to also contest national and provincial elections. So this is going to be a very highly competitive electoral contestation in 2024. And I think voters are spoiled for choice. But we know that voters are not a monolithic group. They are diverse. They have varying expectations, demands, needs, interest, and also it's up to political parties to entice voters so that they're able to go and vote during the election day.
Yes, of course. And I think that's something I would really like to get into, the multi-party nature of our democracy. But Professor Koma, if I could just ask you to hang on a second while we take an ad break, then we'll come back to the conversation. Please do stay tuned.
Okay.
The Ahmad School of Excellence in Lebanon provides world-class education to Syrian and Palestinian refugees and Lebanese children with a library, coding, robotics lab, special needs classroom, and more. Amman is the foundation from which a generation of underprivileged children can fight poverty and reclaim their freedom. Donate towards a child's education because every child deserves the chance of a better future. Africa Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness. And every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and free zakat calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Our brothers and sisters in Palestine are enduring unimaginable hardships. Ashraful Aid teams are on the ground, delivering crucial aid to those in need. But we can't do it alone. Palestine is suffering and they need your help. Your support can make a world of difference. Visit www.ashrafulaid.org today and donate to bring hope, relief, and healing to those who are in need.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
The Turkey-Syria earthquake is among the deadliest earthquakes of the last century. Thousands have lost their lives, and large areas and cities and towns in southern Turkey and northern Syria have turned to rubble, leaving huge numbers of residents with very little or nothing at all. Al Imdad Foundation's emergency relief team is on the ground providing life-saving aid. The people of Turkey and Syria desperately need your support. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
It's past 8 a.m. Welcome back. My guest this morning, Professor Sam Koma, a governance expert. Thank you so much, Professor, for waiting while we took that ad break. Now, continuing with our conversation, where we were talking about the multi-party nature of our democracy. Now, I think for so far, we've had one-party dominance under multi-party system. When people look at the political landscape, there are very many options, literally hundreds of them. But are there really options when you actually look at it for voters? Do they really have many choices? Are they really going to vote very widely across the number of political parties that we've had so far and are inevitably going to be formed in the build-up to the elections?
Yes, Zaid, thank you for that. So if you look at our political landscape, say the last 3 successive national elections, you have about 10 political parties that have sort of entrenched themselves because successively they are able to garner some political support to be able to of course, obtain parliamentary seats. So in the main, of course, we know we have the ANC, the DA, the EFF, IFP, ACDP, and also UDM, COPE, and others. But the 2019 national elections, which is now our baseline, does indicate to us that there are 2 political parties that recorded electoral growth and the rest registered electoral decline, that is the ANC and the DA. But you have the FF plus and also the EFF. These are the only 2 parties that were able to register electoral growth. So that tells you that there is space for voters in terms of how they decide on their preferences. But later we knew that there is evidence that emerged that those voters who voted for FF plus largely were drawn from the DA core support base. And those that voted for the EFF were also drawn largely from the ANC core support base. Because remember, the EFF, to some extent, is a splinter party of the ANC. So this time around, if you look at the 2024 political scenario in terms of the elections, it's not now guaranteed and given that these 2 parties that recorded electoral growth in the 2019 will sustain that momentum, because we now have new political players that have come into the space, namely Action SA, Patriotic Alliance, and also I mentioned that you have 3 movements that have been established by political leaders who do not have any constituency in the sense of breaking away from a party. So you have Rise Mzansi movement, you now have the Change Starts Now movement of Jardine, you also have the Build One South Africa, led by Musi Maimane. Then in the space, you also have a space created for independence. We don't know how the voters will choose on the independence, but also we don't have data that tell us that there is voters' appetite for independence. So we will still have these dominant political parties competing and also contesting for participation in the National Assembly and also in the provincial legislatures. But the good thing is that you can see that each time South Africa or the country prepares for a national election, we have new political players coming into the space. Some they do well, some they suffer major setback and also defeat. You remember we used to have Arang South Africa, which was participating in the National Assembly. We also had the APC that was in the National Assembly. You can see that there's no mention of the two parties this time around. So we have new players altogether who are also shaping the direction of our political landscape, and it remains to be seen how they will fare come the election day in 2024.
Just for a second, I'd like to talk about the language surrounding these organizations and parties in the build up to elections. So you mentioned we've got movements and then we've also got political parties, or as they would like us to think, that they refer to themselves either as a movement or a party. Is there really that much of a difference between these groups?
Not much, but they're saying a movement, it's all inclusive. Everyone is welcome to be part of this movement, young and old. And also we are not bound by some historical past compared or relative to these political parties that have been in the space for some time. So it's just a positioning of their political brand to be able to attract and also entice a sizable voter base. We know the reality, and also the evidence is there that you have about 14 million potential voters eligible to vote but are not yet registered to vote. A bigger chunk of those are young people. Okay, so I think it's part of how they intend to strategize as part of their campaigning, and also to attract a sizable number of the voters to be part of their movement. But these are political parties in the main, because they register as political parties.
Yes. And of course, then one of the big features in the build up to this election is the potential for coalition politics. We've seen how messy those could be on a local level. Do you think South Africa is mature enough to possibly look at this in a constructive way and take this forward in 2024 if it should come to a national level?
Yes, yeah, thanks for that, Zahid. So the good thing is that you have about 7 political parties that have already prepared the ground for any eventuality that may yield a hung national government that will then trigger negotiations for the constituting of a coalition government at the national level. And those are the parties that were able to come together, agree on broad principles and also values, and come up with what they refer to as a multi-party charter. And we know that these parties were signatory to the charter. They've agreed on the mechanisms and also other aspects that will shape the multi-party government in the event the national elections of 2024 yield a hung national government. They are saying we have looked into this and we are willing to work together in the event the national government, the national elections trigger a coalition government. The other parties, you can see, they've not made much movement and expressions to say we are also looking forward to partner with Party A or Party B in the event we have this hung national government. So that's the beauty about this, that you have anticipation on the part of these political parties led by the political leaders to say the best way of managing a coalition government at the national level is through a charter. And this is what is missing at the moment in our municipal councils, the municipalities that are under coalition arrangement. Till this day, they have not agreed on, say, a charter or an agreement reduced in writing, made available for public members to scrutinize, but also to be able to hold these political parties accountable. So I'm saying at least you have 7 parties that are preparing the ground for that eventuality.
All right, and just finally, your thoughts on Roger Jardine's new party, Change Starts Now?
Oh, yes. So I referred to Rise Mzansi, Build One South Africa. So Change Starts Now movement led by Jardine, my sense is that it's going to compete in this voter space that the other parties are trying to entice. And this is your middle class segment of the voters, largely residing in the urban centers, the cities, the suburbs. You can see even the movement was launched in Sandton, the same with the other movements. We also had the same experience with their launching. So my sense is that he's also targeting the middle class in the main, to say if we are able to capture the middle class in terms of our narrative, our political campaigning, we may stand a good chance to garner some sizable voter base come 2024. But he's going to compete with these other 2 formations that have entered into the space. Because if you refer to their articulations, their expressions, there's not much difference because the issues they intend to tackle in the main are more or less the same. It's about reforming state-owned enterprises, combating corruption, fixing our economy, and also getting a large number of unemployed people to have access to employment opportunities in the event, of course, they run the country.
All right, Professor Koma, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you about the political landscape in the build-up to the 2024 elections, I think for the past 20 minutes or so. But if you ask me, I think we've only really just gotten started. There's so much more to discuss, as in, voter preferences and so on and so forth. But thank you so much for your time this morning.
Pleasure, Zaid.
That was Professor Sam Koma, a governance expert, speaking to us about the political landscape leading into the 2024 elections. And he concluded with, his analysis, or his views rather, on the new party started by Roger Jardine, and that, of course, Change Starts Now. And speaking of them, in a few moments, we're going to be speaking to social justice activist Mark Haywood. He's actually one of the members of Change Starts Now, and he's going to speak to us more about that party, or movement, as some have been calling it. But let's take a break. When we get back, we'll continue.